We've got Steve Altonian here, my credit cowboy. Many of you guys that listen to us, who've called in, who have worked with us, have actually talked to and work with Steve as well. And Steve is going to give us all kinds of credit tips and advice today. So one thing that I'm actually I want to know more about. I'm really like, I want you to dig into this for us. Yesterday, you sent out a newsletter to all of your clients that talked about the new scoring model and how Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion are going to be changing the way that our credit scores look. So I wanted you to kind of get into that a bit.
Sure. It's funny. Every now and then, the scoring model will change just a little bit. And sometimes it works in the consumer's favor. Other times it doesn't. This time it seems to me it's going to be split. The way it is kind of set up now, they're going to do FICO 10. So I don't know, as a lender, what are you currently using? Are you on 9 or still on 8 or whatever? In any case, most lenders, from what I understand, will be...
And I'm going to be honest with you, we don't know. No. Because the mortgage companies are, they set that up where we're sending the loans through. We pull credit based on what they're wanting. So, they say, we don't know if they're using 8, 9. We're definitely not using the credit report that is showing us balances over time. So which one is that one? Where you can actually see if you're paying your credit card off every month or
the trended report.
Yeah, we're not using a trended report that came out for a minute about 2 years ago.
Correct.
And then it went away.
So, and that's the interesting point. It came out for a minute, and you're going to see it reintroduced because FICO 10 and FICO 10T, which I couldn't find anything on the internet what the heck the T was, so I said, well, I think they mean trended. I'm going to assume that's what it means.
Guess,
so,
yeah.
So the way FICO, Fair Isaac Corporation, which is what FICO stands for, is going to be doing it this time, is they want to make sure that if you're paying your credit cards, you're paying consistently over a period of time versus what you've been doing lately. And it's really interesting because when I first got into the credit repair business, you learn things as you go through in life, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know. Yep. I remember when I was a loan officer, I thought things were gospel, and it turned out I was really wrong. Well, one thing on credit was I used to tell people, how you pay this month matters and how you pay next month matters. And I'm telling people this for my first year, and I'm convinced. And then finally one day I realized, through a little bit more, investigation,
seasoning?
Seasoning that wasn't the case. But it made sense to me, and my validation comes 7 years later because now FICO agrees with me, and they changed it to agree with the way I originally had it. So I really wasn't wrong.
I like the way you think.
So what you're saying is, right now we pull a credit report, somebody's credit score isn't quite as good as what we want it to be. And so we give them the recommendation to maybe pay down some of those debts to do that rescore, to get that credit score up. And what you're saying is if we do move to this FICO 10T, the new model, with the trended, they're not necessarily going to get that same bump because their credits,
You will not get that same bump. And it was interesting because yesterday morning, and it's funny because, all this was coming about, and I was like, what's really going on? I said, well, this has been coming out, and I'm looking at it, I'm saying, well, this isn't really making sense. So I did some investigation. But the FICO 10T will be out for most lenders probably by the end of the year. That's what they're saying. It's going to be out by
everybody's going to move to. Okay.
Out by the end of the year. So with this particular one, you can't pay at the end of, for example, I was telling someone on the phone in the morning, I was telling them, and usually I don't want people to charge my services on their credit card. And I told them, I said, the only time I will let someone charge my services is if you're going to charge it and you tell me you're going to pay it within 30, 60, 90 days. Because I told them, by the way, we want you to pay your cards down about 30 to 45 days so your score will boost before. And you know what? When I told them that, I thought it was right. This was yesterday. Mm-hmm. And now with the new model, it's going to be incorrect.
Right.
It's not right now because they're still breaking it out. But gone are the days where you can pay down your cards and immediately have your credit score bump up.
Right. Gotcha.
So you're going to need to do it for a few months, which is what I used to tell my clients when I first came in as a young lad of 40, whatever.
Okay. All right. So we actually have a question right now. It's from Whiskey Walrus. We love him. He always asks us questions, but he says, "Hello again. My wife Gladys has a question about Credit Karma and other service like that. Are the scores they provide you with your actual scores, or are they an estimate to your actual score?"
Well, Whiskey Walrus, I am the Eggman, just so you know. And
You're the Eggman?
I'm the Eggman. Remember the old Beatles song? I'm the Eggman.
All right.
Anyways, okay, great question. Great question. Credit Karma is something that is used consistently, and it's based on Vantage 3.0.
Okay.
So that's not FICO. Totally different companies. The scoring models are generally different, anywhere from 25 to 75 points. And it can go either way.
And we see it.
And we
Right.
see it.
They see it constantly. One thing I did put out in the newsletter, and I just threw this in, I think because Vantage already has the trended accounted for, I think that gap's going to close a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be dramatic. It might be 10, 15 points, but I think it would be closer because Credit Karma's already using the trended. They're not. So there'll be more on board. So I look for that. But generally speaking, a soft pull, which is Vantage 3.0, is not going to give you an accurate score from what a lender would pull. However, it's going to tell you what's negative. It's going to let you know what's going on with your credit.
It's still a great way to keep your eye on it. But what I have noticed kind of on average is when somebody says that they have Credit Karma, first of all, Credit Karma gives you 2 scores typically, not all 3,
Right.
is what my experience has been. And usually the credit score on Credit Karma is higher than what we get when we pull as a lender. And it's usually higher, I would say, by about 30 points, wouldn't you? When you say on
absolutely.
average? Yeah.
And mine, because I recently got my new scores, and my Credit Karma, I have to tell you, was way off.
Really?
Way off.
High or low?
Low.
Wow.
Low. So had I counted on Credit Karma, I wouldn't have done, and you're going to touch on this, I wouldn't have done my consolidation personal loan.
Right. So and that
you're
is
gonna
kind
touch
of,
on
yeah,
this.
because you're going to touch
Right.
on that with all
Yeah,
of the new
with
stuff
the new
that's
stuff.
coming out.
Yeah, and that's another part to
So
it.
I counted on Credit Karma. I mean, it showed my scores high 6s, low 7s.
Wow.
Versus the 790
770 or 90. Yeah. The one with the best credit in the world over here.
Right. So I mean, it was a huge gap.
Right.
But yours was lower.
Mine was
Yeah.
way lower.
See, most of the time, clients is higher.
Right.
Yes.
And we
And
do
the clients
see
get
that.
really
upset.
upset.
Yeah. So
Because
so
of-
now I don't know where it trends, right? Because I'm looking
Yeah.
at it going,
Wow. Okay. So we've got, Whiskey Walrus did say that's my all-time fave Beatles song. So you hit it right on the head.
we had no idea what
We
you were
had no
talking
idea
about.
what you guys were talking about.
Showing my age. Oh, Lord.
Love it. All right. So Anne asks us, if you have collection accounts that are affecting your credit score, is it best to pay them off in full, or is it best to negotiate? Is it easy to get things removed from the report?
Okay, so the question comes down to how do collection accounts affect your credit score, and does paying off a collection account actually help you? It's very minimal times when paying off a collection account will help you. There will be times when you'll get on a what if scenario,
Right.
where it will tell you if you pay such and such an item down, it will help you, and I've come up with the reason for that.
Yeah, I'm wondering because there are times that when I
I'm
run
gonna
that
tell you why.
simulator, it will say pay
about
off that collection.
About a month ago,
Yeah.
I was in office and we were just shooting everything with our whole staff, and I brought up what you said, and it finally dawned on me why it happens. Because when you're paying off that collection, it was a credit card, which affected the utilization. So the utilization has gone down. You paid the collection. You affected the utilization. That's why the score went up. It wouldn't go up for
like a medical
for a
collection.
medical or
Right.
a car that's not utilizing your available
Yep.
credit.
And
Gotcha.
I
Okay.
figured that out about a month ago, and I'm like, okay, that's the reason for that one. LOs
that
come
makes
to me
sense.
and tell me that, and they're like, and I never had a good answer for anybody. So it's like, it's just one of those aberrations. But
Right.
it's utilization, and if you pay it off, it's going to help your score. So that's the one time that it will help your score if you're paying off a collection account, if it affects your utilization. Now, pay it off in full. Or settling, it's going to be the same thing as far as your score. It's not going to help your score either way. Do what's lighter on your pocket would be my best advice to you.
Now, I have a question for you because recently I had a client that did have a collection account. They were in a big argument with Verizon. Go figure. That's the one we always see that's on there. Or AT&T. It was AT&T. It was AT&T. And AT&T is always the one that we see on the collections for some reason. We see Verizon too. I don't know. The cell phone companies. It's something about them. Yeah. Anyway, so they were in a big argument with them because they had switched over from one service provider to AT&T. And AT&T told them that they had an unlimited plan so they could call international. Then all of a sudden they get this big giant bill. They're going back and forth with, AT&T to the point that, they're telling them they're going to fix it and then they never do fix it. And they just finally get frustrated and they move their service. And they end up with this collection account because they didn't pay the bill because it wasn't supposed to be there to begin with. But they never really got it settled. So, they asked me, what should I do? And I said, we need to ask the credit cowboy, you need to first call and you need to see the collection company if there's any possible way at all that you can make a payment and they will remove it from the credit report. If I pay you right now today, will you remove this from my credit report? Not updated to paid in full, not settled for less. If I pay it right now, will you remove it from my credit report? Sometimes they will do that. Other times they're going to say no. And I told them, I said, if you call and they tell you no, they won't do that. I need to call and ask the credit cowboy if you should make that payment, because I've seen where people will make a payment on a collection account and their FICO score will drop because now all of a sudden they've kind of refreshed that account. Right,
exactly. So it'd be say 2017, a $1,600 account. Now you pay it, it's 2020. So you update it.
Right. So in that situation, though, if you've got this collection account that is old, if you have something that comes on collection and all of a sudden you realize it's there, it was yours, and you can pay it immediately, it's all right there and then. It just reported. Now you're going to at least pay it. Now it's going to be at least a zero. And now that collection account's going to start to age, right? And it's going to age at a zero balance. But if it's a collection account that's been around for a while and you've got this balance sitting on your credit report and they won't work with you, if you pay them, they're still not going to remove it. What's your best advice?
Well,
what do they do?
It really, I tell people, sometimes the best move is to do nothing at all. And, the only reason I would tell people to pay it is, one, if you feel you're going to get wage garnishment, you don't want to get sued, you don't want the calls, then you pay it. That's your decision. The other is, in the course of your getting a loan, the underwriter says, hey, I'm going to loan you $500,000. I need to pay this $3,000 collection off. Then if you want that $500,000, you're going to pay the collection. Other than that, there's really not a whole lot of incentive, unfortunately.
Doing the right thing isn't necessarily
FICO
helping out.
doesn't make it where it's your score is laden to what your balances are, and it makes sense. I guess it makes sense if I was a business owner. I wouldn't want people coming back and making good and then trying to loan them money and really know that they can't borrow money. So I guess you got to look at it from all angles. But whatever, we're at war. So we're trying to get money from these people.
Okay, so back to the last part of Anne's question. So that kind of actually answered her question, because she said, is it best to pay them off in full or is it better to negotiate? Obviously, if you've got those collections on there, for us in a lending standpoint, if you have more than $2,000 in aggregate balances in collection accounts on your credit report that are not medical,
right,
you do need to pay them off or get on a payment plan. So in that situation, you should try to negotiate those for less. You can pay them. You can definitely negotiate for less, pay them for less than what the balance is that's due. We're still going to look at that as paid in full because you did pay and they did give you a zero balance letter, and that's all okay. But if it's something that's been sitting around for a while, what do they do? And that's, kind of, I think, the big question. And it sounds like from you is kind of wait, maybe try to start the credit repair process, see what you can maybe get off that credit report.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing credit repair and you want to get it off to help your score, it's going to help your score. Once something's older, it's like, I don't know if you've ever looked on like your hands and found a mark or a nick, you don't even remember you had it.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got a scar, and it's like, where did that come from? Well, it hurt when you first had it. Now,
you just can't remember.
You don't remember it. Same thing with your credit. So, after time, your credit will heal up. When people come to us, we get items removed, and then we're building their credit, and then a little bit of time, and, that's really what makes, things cook a little bit quicker.
Right.
But if something is older, you're better off just kind of letting it alone.
Just kind of leaving it be.
Yeah, unless you have a real reason to pay it. You know, like I said, an underwriter, you know, you're trying to borrow money, you're trying to get a business loan for $3 million, and they want you to pay a $10,000 collection, then you do it. So.
Right.
How long can a collection stay on your credit?
7 years from the date of last activity, and you know, that's why you just don't want to keep re-updating it. So.
Right. Okay. Now, here's the next question: is let's say that they go through credit repair with you, and you get an item off of the credit report. How likely is it that that item would come back to haunt you?
Right. Okay. So when you're going after an item, and you're going to the bureaus, you're going to the original creditor, and you're going to, say, a collection company. At least we as a company, we go to all three. Okay, a lot of companies only go to the bureaus. So if you only go to the bureaus and the next month Chase wants to re-report it, it's going to re-report it. So the odds are less with us as a company. It doesn't mean an item never will come back on.
Okay, because you guys are going not only to the three bureaus, you're also going to the actual creditor.
The creditor. So we'll deal, for example, if we're dealing with Capital One or GM or whatever the case may be, Sierra, whatever the case may be, we'll be dealing with these companies directly, and then we'll also deal with the bureaus. And the reason we do that is we don't want the item to pop back up.
Right.
Like I said, it doesn't mean it ever does, but I can, when people ask that question when I'm talking to them initially, I can say, I would say in my lifetime, it's got to be maybe 3%. I mean, I just don't get those complaints.
Right.
You know, just because of the way we do it now, where someone comes up and says, hey, the item came back on, and I just don't. So, but if it does, then you deal with it accordingly. And there was a reason why it was.
So very minimal, though, when
Yeah,
you're
very
approaching
minimal.
it
Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah. Or it got sold to someone else, a collection company, and it's a different collection company.
And now that
Right.
collection company is now reporting
That's
it.
different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe if you can get it off the credit report, then maybe it would behoove them to call and pay it. So that it doesn't get back, it doesn't get
course.
sold
Right.
and off to the next company
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be re-reported.
And also, there is always, garnishments and stuff like
Right,
that.
right.
Right.
Now, let me ask you a question. Let's say somebody does get a collection or they have one on there, or they've got late payment showing, and they want to try to dispute it and get it off of the report, and they do pay it. Are they basically admitting that it was theirs, that they're at fault, so now they've got a way less chance of getting it removed? Does that piece matter?
Well, I mean, technically, if you pay something, you're admitting it's yours, right?
Right. So does that make it more difficult to get that off?
So technically it should, but technically it doesn't. Here's why. Because you have the human element. Because at least for us, when we launch our investigation, I think because we make life so miserable for them, some people just figure, you know what, this sucker paid this. I don't care.
Right.
And then, I'm not saying everyone does that, but I know that happens.
Right.
They're
A
like, we got our money.
Right,
And
we
want
got our
them to
money,
go.
we don't care. So
we
it-
want to get the pit bull off of us.
It does work, exactly, and that's the theory behind it. So
Right.
when someone has already paid it, I don't fault them, but I'm not going to tell someone up front, pay it unless, like I said, any of the other scenarios.
Yeah.
Right.
We were talking about the Vantage 10. I wanted you to give us a rundown of a credit report you've got in front of you that I'm going to pretend it is me so that we're not divulging any names or information.
Okay.
So I want people to understand what you do and how you do it and why you're so successful at it. But a couple of things I want to get into with that Vantage 10, because one of the things that I read was if you've got a really good credit score and your credit score right now today is over 700, you're probably going to see your score bump another 20 up with the new model. Right. But if your credit score is low, you're probably going to see your credit score drop another 20. So...
Right. And I think the reason for that, if you think about it, because now it's going to trend over 24 months. And the people who have good credit have shown consistently that they have been taking care of business. While the people with less than stellar credit sometimes might be a little bit challenged, and they're going to probably do the same things during that period of time. So historically, the way it looks, it's going to be about 20 points for people 600 and below. They're going to lose.
They're going to lose?
And then 680 and above are going to gain about 20 points, which is probably consistent with other changes in FICO that we've had over the years. So.
And then you said, too, that they were going to actually be a little prejudiced So if you did do a debt consolidation loan, which we've talked about, and Heidi just did one to get all those credit cards paid off, that if you do one of those, so let's say that you've got credit card debt, you do a debt consolidation, take out the personal loan,
Right.
leave the credit cards zero.
Right.
Is that going to, are they going to judge as harshly on that, or is it truly about then recharging those cards again?
Right. So the way I'm understanding it at this point, it's going to be if you get into trouble after that.
Right.
So they're clearly going to be able to see if you transferred, credit card balances to a personal loan, and that's the kind of data that they're going to be looking for. Installment loans had less value on your credit score to begin with, so now it's going to be even less. Based on this, it's going to affect it a little bit. It's really interesting because definitely Big Brother is watching. He wants to make sure that your finances are in order. So the 24-month, trended way of doing it, and now actually holding it accountable, it just makes sense. So, but anybody who had an installment loan, it's going to carry even less weight because and if you went and got back into debt, they're gonna find it and they're gonna ding you for it.
Now,
what the score is on score hit on that's going to be,
Yeah.
I don't know, but they're going to hit you. It's going to be an algorithm.
Well, here's a question that I'm wondering is that we have a lot of clients, and even myself, that I'll use my credit card because I don't want to use my checking account. I've had my debit card stolen so many times that I don't want to use it. So I'll use my credit card and pay it off every single month. So, but what happens is that every single month, my credit card balance goes up to about 50% of my limit, and then I pay it off and it's zero again, right? But what the credit company sees, the credit report sees, is what the balance was at the time that the statement printed. And so then for me, it's going to look like, even though I've paid my credit card off every single month, it's going to look like my balance was $5,000, right? And so it's maybe not necessarily going to be giving
it's still going to show that you made a $5,000, you made a payment.
It's
right?
not.
Well, it's going to show you made a payment.
It's going to show what the payment is.
So
is
it
what I'm
does show the
saying.
payment that the person made.
Yeah,
That piece.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So
and that's what I was
going to
wondering.
show that you're making your
So
payments.
if you charge $2,000, let's say you pay back $1,000, which is decent,
Right.
They're going to notice that. If you charge $2,000 and didn't, that's going to be taken into account in the scoring model.
Okay, so that new credit report's not only going to show the balance at the time that the credit report, or that they reported, so that statement printed, but it's going to also show the payment that was
What
made.
you paid.
It's going to show your trending utilization, right?
Well,
Like
but
the
trending utilization, how you're paying, how
paying,
high your
right.
cards are 6 months ago, a year ago, a year and a half ago. Remember, it's a 2-year model. So
No, I get that, but in my head, I see when we pull credit reports right now, what we
Right.
see is the balance that's on the credit report, and I tell people this all the time. Be conscientious. They ask me, when should I pay the card off? I say, be conscientious of when your statement prints.
Right.
So that day that you get that email in your email box that says, your statement is ready, I'll tell people, go back to that email and look for that, your statement is ready, because that balance, that day that statement prints, is what is being sent to the credit bureau.
Right.
So if you want to make sure that on your credit report, your balance is lower, you need to make sure that you pay that balance off before that statement prints.
And that's why I always tell people a week before your due date is when I tell people to actually do that, based exactly on what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
But the problem is that if that, and that's why I'm asking, like, are they going to actually show the payment being made or just the balance that is carrying? And it's something that you can get us that answer down the road if you don't know it. But if I'm charging $5,000 every month and I'm paying it off every month, but it's always going to be kind of around that same amount, and they're not showing the payment that I made against that balance the month before,
I'm
right?
kind of looking at this
one has
report.
trending.
Excuse me.
Oh, so that one's actually got the trending on it. Nice. Okay.
Yeah, and this was not planned. This
Okay.
was totally not
Yeah,
planned.
yeah.
We were
Trending.
actually looking at some other stuff, but it does actually show the payment. For example, this was someone paid $40 and they paid $86 on April of 2017, then $40, then $50 in December. So each month's going to be different.
And it
Yeah.
is showing the payment
It's
being
showing
made.
the payment
So that's
and then the
amazing. That's awesome,
percentage.
because when
Yeah.
I read your thing yesterday, I started panicking for myself, because what it said was they're going to start looking at that data
Right.
and what that, and what your trending is, what are those balances over that 2-year period.
Right.
And all I could think to myself is like, well, my balances are going to look horrible even though I
Right.
pay them off every
Yeah.
month. So that's actually great that they're reporting the payment made.
Yeah.
Right.
That's going to be a big, huge difference.
Right, yeah, and that's key. So
Right.
if you charge your American Express and you pay it off, that's that's what they're looking for.
Right. So we've got Erica up here. She said, I have the same problem. My numbers bump up and down a couple points every time. And sometimes my credit company doesn't update every month. Sometimes it shows I have a balance even when I don't. And, that can be very frustrating. And so the biggest piece of advice that I can give you to Erica and to everybody else that's watching or listening is, again, like I just said, we all get an email that says your statement is ready. And if you are not at a point yet where you're using email and you're using paperless, get there. Log in and get there. Even if you still want the statement in the mail, that's fine. Turn off paperless, but put on notifications and make sure you're getting notifications. That way you could go back and you can actually search Capital One in your email box and you can look to see, when did I get that last email that said your statement is due? Make sure that you make your payment, or your statement is ready. Make sure that you make your payment before that recurring date each month, because the balance then will be lower, and when they report it to the credit bureau, it will be accurate. So okay, awesome. So what I want you to do is I want you to talk to me as though I'm your client and you are, looking at my credit report, and you're going to give me advice. What can your company do for me? So this is Steve Altonian, Credit Law Solutions. If you guys have listened to us before, you've heard him. He's got his commercials in my show. He's done a fantastic, just bang up job for all of the clients that I've sent to him. Really, truly amazing stuff. He's here because he does a great job. And I would not promote somebody that wasn't doing a great job. But I want you to understand what his service is, because a lot of people don't really understand what is credit repair going to do. And one thing I can say is that my mom's in lending. She's been doing it longer than me. And she actually asked me for your number yesterday. And she said, but he's not just one of those guys that, sends off a dispute to every lender. And then I've got disputes on these accounts, and now I've got to get the disputes off before I can close the loans. I said, no, Steve does it different. So pretend like I'm your client, and that's my credit report. Okay. And I want you to talk to me about it. I want you to give me a consultation. I want you to tell me what you do. I'm going to ask you what you're going to charge me. How long is it going to take me to get it done? So thank you so much for being here, Steve.
Sure. So,
all right.
The credit report that I've got from you, Miss Mark, yes, is your husband and yourself.
My credit's excellent. My husband's isn't.
You have great credit. Great credit. But I'm going to flip the script on this one.
All right.
The husband's got good. No.
All right. Husband's got great credit. Mine's terrible.
Husband's got good credit. Yeah. So, and this happens a lot. One half of the couple will come in with great credit, and the other will be less than stellar. In this particular case, Papa, is getting, a little bit of the short end of the stick, because he's somewhere in the 680s or something like that, 660s, which isn't normally that bad. It's average. You can do a lot of stuff. I have a lot of clients that would love to have that. But in this case, Mama has a 780, so it's not working.
Right.
So you have a big discrepancy between the highest and the lowest, and you're always going to have whatever interest rate's going to be on the lowest credit score. So the goal is to get the lowest credit score on par with the highest score, whether it's the husband or wife. So
right, because if I take a loan application and I run the credit, even though one might have stellar, we're going to use that lowest middle score for the actual interest rate that's provided. So,
and if
that
we need
can
the
be very
income
frustrating.
From both,
right,
then it's a little frustrating.
Right.
And here's the thing: the caveat can be the person with the high score can have make no money. They might be maybe the wife who just stays at home and really does all the work.
Definitely. I guarantee you, my husband does more work than me, and he's at home.
And so I mean, any scenarios,
Yeah. All right. So what would you suggest in that situation? There's, there's some older collections that are on there. There's some little older, charge-offs that were on that credit report. What would you suggest to me? Would you suggest that I, sign up for the program? Where are you at on that?
On this one, there's about, 10 to 13 gray areas that are medical collections, different types of collections. I want to say a couple utilities, but a lot of them are medical. So when I'm looking at them, this particular one comes from one company. A lot of the medical data is $63, $70, $90, $80. These are Tylenols, Vicodin, God knows what. I mean, it's crazy. A bunch of these are on here, and they're all from one company, one collection company. Now, when I see this, I do like it. It doesn't mean everything's going to come off, but if we get normally one of these accounts off, they do generally fall like dominoes, because these are all, you can tell it was one or two scenarios. That's generally the way it is. You have a hospital stay or two.
And how do you feel about medical collections? Like you said, when you see, okay.
I love them because they violate your rights as a consumer. They don't mean to. I mean, these are people trying to do a job, and there's just so much to do. They can't keep up with it. By law, they're supposed to give you 3 notices: an initial, secondary, and a final notice. They generally don't do that. The HIPAA Act says you're supposed to not share doctor-patient confidentiality, and when an item goes to collection, they end up sharing information they shouldn't. So we get them on the HIPAA Act. So I love it when I see medical.
Okay.
I really do.
So in this situation, you're saying this would be a really great candidate
it's
because
great
you could get a lot of those collections.
On a couple things. And then, I'm the kind, most of my clients are sent by lenders like you, and I want to, I want to be able to get you a loan. That's why we talk. So on this particular one, since Mama has good credit, I'm going to suggest that we add Papa as an authorized user to all her good accounts. So we want to try to piggyback on her good credit. We might get 20 points, we might get 40 points, whatever we get, but we're fighting for every point. We want to close that gap. So between getting the items removed, if the client ends up enrolling and doing that, and maybe showing up their other credit card utilization, they should be fine.
Okay.
This client should be 740 to where Mama's at. Right?
Okay. And so what do you think that the time frame for that to happen? So you're saying, this client you should be able to get them to a 740, right? Like that would be your goal number.
I mean, this one here, it could be a short
end. And it's this scenario. We're not saying that everybody out there that's something
this one here,
he's
because it's all one company. Technically, this stuff could fall off first round. A lot of them off that one particular Sears company, and the score could just spike up, and then we add, and I can get a call from the client, hey, I'm up 60, 80 points or whatever, and we just stop and we're done or whatever, and we continue.
Okay.
But this one's one company, so I would expect a lot of it to fall off like scales. I would hope it would.
Yeah.
And like I said, if a lot of those come off plus what we do, they're going to be good to go all day long.
Okay. And what are you going to charge me to sign up? So I say, okay, great. You know what, Steve, that sounds amazing. I definitely want to do that. I'd like to see what you can get off of the report. Sounds like we're going to probably need maybe 2-3 months, to get it done. It's, realistically, if it doesn't come off by the 3rd round, it's probably not going to, but there's a really good possibility. If they're medical, you like that. So what's it going to cost me?
$499 is the initial enrollment. That includes all the legal paperwork, my coaching and consulting where I get involved, and my staff that helps with processing and stuff. After that, it's $99 a month. No contracts, no hidden fees. Clients that come from Mortgage Mom Radio always get $100 off, so it's $399, and then $99 a month after that. So,
okay, so you're talking $399 and then $99 a month, and we're going to call it maybe 3 months. So you're at $699, $700, and you might have gone from a $680 to a $740. In my opinion, totally worth it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So somebody wants to give you a call. Number one, if you guys want to get a hold of Steve, obviously you can reach out to us. Me or Heidi are going to get you guys in touch with Steve and, on your way over there to get that credit started. But if somebody wanted to call you direct, how do they get a hold of you?
Call me 818-932-9531. If you forget that, I know you hear it all the time, go to askthecreditcowboy.com. It'll prompt you to get on there. I'll chat with you, whatever. It's really easy to remember askthecreditcowboy.com versus a phone number.
All right. Well, that is probably that's probably the best thing. Go to askthecreditcowboy.com.
Ask the Credit Cowboy. Ask the Credit Cowboy. Ask the Credit Cowboy before you leave. Y'all come back now, you hear? Ask the Credit
Yeah, so thank you, Steve. You were fantastic.
Thank you. It was fun.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.